Alright, so first we are going to create our camera that is going to be linked to the teapot and follow it from a first-person perspective. Now, when we attached the spotlight target to the teapot, we had some bizarre effects because as the teapot scaled up, the distance between the teapot and the point also scaled up and weirdness occurred. So that wasn't a good solution. However, it seems that when we do that with a camera, that does not happen. It actually ends up working out okay. So I'm zooming in from the top viewport to create my camera, and I go under Create, and then I make sure I come over to the Camera tab, and I'm in Standard, and then I do a free camera. And I just click to create it in the top viewport, and if we look, we can see that it's actually kind of below the teapot and it's also facing down. So we can very easily click on the camera itself and move it up so that it's above the teapot, and we can also rotate it so that it's actually aiming forward. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to place it kind of behind the teapot so we can actually see it. Now, we can go over into one of our viewports and select Perspective, Camera, Camera 1, and I can turn default shading on, and then if I hit play, I can see that my teapot left without my camera, and that's because I still haven't linked anything yet. So let's get rid of the taskbar at the bottom. And then we will just use our linking tool to link the camera to the teapot. Awesome. So now, when we right-click in our Camera 1 viewport and we hit play, we shall see that we are now traveling along the flight of insanity with the teapot itself. Okay, so that's that first-person perspective, and if we look at any of the other viewports, we can see that our camera is flying right along with our teapot. And actually, that distance thing still plays a factor. We can see at the beginning of our animation, the teapot and the camera are very close to each other, and then as the animation continues and the teapot scales up and gets bigger, that distance between the camera and the teapot also gets bigger. But sometimes accidents have the effect that we actually want, and if you think about it, if they stayed the same distance and the teapot kept growing, the camera would have ended up inside the teapot, so maybe it works that way for a reason. Alright, so that's our first camera, and now we're going to make another camera. We are going to set up a camera probably maybe over here, and we are going to have it be a target camera so that we can have it follow the motion of the teapot as it travels through the scene. So we come back over, and this time we're going to do a target camera. And our first click determines the position of the camera itself, and then the second position is the target. So I'm actually going to drop it right kind of where the teapot is in the scene, and now I have my second camera and its target. So if I look to the right here, my camera is starting to get a little crowded in here. My camera is actually pretty far down in the scene, so maybe I want to move it up a little bit so it has kind of a higher viewpoint. We can see it raising up over here. The second thing we want to do, this is its target. Nope, that's the plane. This is the target right here. We want to move that up so it's actually close to the teapot. Now, in this situation, if I link it to the teapot, we're going to have that same issue where it just keeps getting further and further from the teapot as the teapot gets bigger. And we don't want that. So I am going to do just like we did with the target for the spotlight. I am just going to assign it the same path constraint so that it follows the path in that same length of time as everything else. So I make sure that our target is selected. I go over to our Motion tab, and I'm just scroll down, so scroll back up. Select Position, select Assign Controller, give computer the control using the path, and we scroll down and select the path, and select our line 1, and we are good to go. So now we can see that our camera stays in one place, and as we play the animation, that camera stays aimed. Actually, the best way to watch would be from up here. So if we see the camera, it stays in one spot, but it continues to watch the teapot as it goes. So we now have 2 cameras in our scene. We've got the one that's the first person view that's following the teapot. Then we've got the one that's stationary but panning to match the teapot's movement. So camera 1 is our first person. So where's camera 1? It's linked to our teapot, so it's down here. So we're going to rename it first person cam. And then we'll rename camera 2, we will call that the pan cam, because that's going to pan to follow the camera. So now we can see up here, if we go under cameras, we can select, oh, it hasn't caught up with me yet. There it goes, pan cam. And actually, we could get really fancy by switching one viewport to the first person camera and one to the second. And it's not going to play them both at the same time because it will only play back one at a time. But there's our first person camera, and let's watch what our pan camera looks like when we play it. All right, so it looks like it's really zoomed in at the end, and let's take a look at why that is. Because at the start of the animation, the teapot is actually really far away from our camera, so it's kind of a it's a wide angle shot. But then once we get toward the end of the animation, the path brings the teapot closer to the path, and it also, the teapot gets bigger. So it might make sense for us to actually just move our camera back a little bit, so that way we can actually see it a little easier, and also maybe move it up a little bit more. All right, now let's watch, see how that looks. Right-click our viewport and play. There we go. Some dramatic animation there. And let's take a quick render and see what we see. Oh yeah. Now we can see that our shadows look kind of weird, and that's mostly because of the settings that we might have had for our spotlight. You can adjust the quality of your shadows as you, let's see. First of all, we're going to bring their density down a little bit. And we can also put this in here. Yes, this is where we control the quality of our shadows. So right now we have, let's up the resolution. 1024, and let's give that another render and take a look at how that looks. Yeah, so now not only is our shadow fainter, and that's mainly because I changed the density. I might have gone a little too far with that. Let's bring that to 0.8. Let's render that. Also, by changing that resolution to 1024, the quality of that shadow has increased. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the bias gives us that little fuzziness on the edge. So, there you have it. Okay, so in our final video, we are going to send up a render of both clips. So we're going to render out all 6 seconds from the first camera and the second camera. And so we're going to go over how to set that up to render out as a movie file and how to save it to the correct location. And then we will end up with 2 video clips of our teapot flying through the air, one first person clip and one panning around the scene as the teapot moves around. See you soon.